Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news where we're going to be talking about two strikers that United are apparently chasing. We know we're looking for a striker in the summer. We know we're looking for a young striker in the summer. Well, there's two young strikers that we've been linked to this morning that we'll be talking about. Nunez of Benfica, Osimhen of Napoli now, formerly of Lille. And also a huge payout for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Huge payout. £43 million Manchester United have played out in compensation to managers over the last 6 years. Huge amounts of money. Huge mistakes. We'll be talking about that as well. Because I think, we spoke about last night about some of the words coming out of the club. And, I'm still lost on a clear vision, a strategy to win, an empowered leadership, an empowered strategy to win with a clear vision that spent nearly £50 million sacking managers that they employed. 50 million quid. Ridiculous amounts of money. We'll also be talking about how this striker situation potentially impacts on Cristiano Ronaldo, of course, and a few other things to bring into the show as well. So I hope you're all doing well this morning. And also, of course, 2 o'clock today, unless any big news breaks, 2 o'clock today, it's our next head-to-head series video. It's Fred against McTominay. And I tell you what, I thoroughly enjoyed doing it. Some really interesting insights there. You're going to be surprised about some of the results on that. But let's get into the morning show. Smash a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe. Bottom right-hand corner. So we're going to start off. Let's start off with Victor Osimhen. We will be talking about Nunez. Man United obviously, clearly do want a striker. We want a striker in the summer. Cavani's going to go. We need to move Martial on. We don't know what's happening with Greenwood. And Ronaldo is 37. He'll be 38 next year. So United are fully aware that they need a young striker coming through. Now, look, you know what? We have got some young strikers. I really rate Charlie McNeil. I think Joe Hugel's an interesting striker as well. But they are youth players. They're probably going to need to go. I mean, what I would say about them is they probably won't both make it. And if one of them does make it, they're probably not ready to play up front for Manchester United next season, and that's what we're talking about. They probably need to go on a loan. I think Jimmy Garner and Ethan Laird and a few others have shown what loan deals can do, and I think that needs to happen with them. So I just want to give them a shout out because I don't see them as part of this conversation for next season. United need a striker next season that can score goals and is an up-and-coming striker. And I think Victor Osimhen and Nunez and a few others certainly fit into that profile, and we'll talk about some of those. But this is coming predominantly from Italy, and it's the second story this week that Italy are looking at a different striker as they expect offers to come in for Victor Osimhen. Now, as far as I'm concerned, he didn't actually leave from Lille that long ago. I think it might be a year, maybe two. Maybe this is his second season in Serie A. Maybe somebody can tell me about that. 22. I liked him at Lille. I thought he was an interesting striker at Lille, but obviously he's done reasonably well at Napoli as well. So he's proven those qualities that many people think he has, that, quick goal-scoring striker who can play at the very top level. And the top level at the moment is not Serie A, and it's not the French league. The top level is really, it's the Premier League, isn't it? And he's made for the Premier League. The problem you've got with this is that Napoli he left in 2020, says Abiadip. Thank you very much. So he's coming up for 2 years there this summer. So he's in his second season. He's a really good player. He's a really exciting player, and he offers different options. Osimhen, I think. Everyone wants to compare them to somebody, and it's hard to compare him to somebody. He's quick, he can finish, and all-round very good striker, who I think that if you put him up front for United, I think he would score goals. I think he'd score goals for Arsenal. I think he's that sort of a striker. I'm not sure whether he'd score goals for Chelsea or at Liverpool. I don't know whether he's at that level, but we aren't at that level. So he's certainly a player. The problem we're going to have, and I like Schick, I do like Schick, Mike. I mean, we'll talk about some other options in a moment, but the problem I have with Osimhen is that it's the same problem that we had with Koulibaly. We wanted Koulibaly, and Napoli were like, well, give us 80, 90 million quid. And we were like, no, we'd rather spend it on Maguire. Prats. Absolute prats. I'm off. I can't believe it. Sometimes when you wander into a conversation and you're like, oh my God, how bad is this club run? I'm actually trying to defend it. I'm trying to defend it here. I'm trying to go, well, it's difficult to do a deal with Napoli because they ask for silly money. They wanted 80 to 90 million pound for Koulibaly 3 years ago. And that's just ridiculous. Which it is ridiculous. So what did United do? They went and gave £80 million to Leicester for Harry Maguire. Oh my Christ. Bloody hell. This bloody club. There's never any solace, is there? There's never a safe place. There's always a Pratt move somewhere. Just when you think, that United would be right not to do that, you go, remember they did this. Anyway, so I'll get back on track. Napoli, we've had Romano on the show. Obviously, he's Italian. He knows how Italian clubs run, and he's said to us before, the thing with Napoli is that they very rarely sell players on the cheap. They don't need to sell players on the cheap. They have this attitude that they want to get the maximum amount of money for people. And with Osimhen, he's a 22-year-old striker who's been a success, and they'd want, somewhere between 80 and 100 million pounds for him. Well, that's United out straight away. That's United out. We buy overpriced or can't develop young talents, says Tom Wilson. So I think in the case of Victor Osimhen, he's an interesting player if he's around 50 million quid. He's going to be a lot more than that. And remember what we were talking about last night. What Rangnick is telling the club to do is avoid the 70, 80, 90, 100 million pound signings and focus on the 30, 40, 50 million pound signings which he can find. And that is a great example, because Napoli will want 80, 90, 100 million pounds for Osimhen, and Rangnick will say, well, yeah, he's a good striker, but I can get you one who I think is as good for 30, 40, 50 million pounds, who's not as fashionable. He's not playing for Napoli in Serie A, he's playing in Austria, or he's playing in the German league, or he's playing in the French league. And that is why, for me, Osimhen's just a big no for United. Not because he's not a good player, I think he is, but I think he's a big no because the price will just be, and admittedly, right, it's too much. It's too much money for him. So that rules Osimhen out for me, and I think... But it's interesting why they're trying to stir something up there. Maybe they want to cash in on him, but they'd have to lower that price a lot. And I can't remember what they actually paid for him. Robert McCormack says Osimhen is a Poundland Lukaku. Always Robert there with the bluntness. Does anybody know how much they actually paid for him? Because that would be a big factor as well. The second player we've been linked to, and again it is from Italian reports about an Italian league player. We've got Portuguese reports, the Record, talking about Nunez to Manchester United. Another 22 million. They've paid 70 million euros for Osimhen, says Himanshu. So 70 million euros is about 63 million pounds. They ain't selling him for less than, I think, 85 million. So forget Osimhen, it's not going to happen. I think we can rule that one out straight away. In relation to Nunez, Record, which is a Portuguese outlet. Now, look, I wouldn't say we've had our fingers burned, but as United fans, we know how the Portuguese press works. We can almost name a lot of them. I mean, God, name me some of them. I think I've tried to blank many of them out, but there's a few. There's a few that come to mind, and I can't think of the bloody names now. But Record obviously is one. I knew that. But Portuguese press can be very promoting of their league and their own players when there's absolutely nothing going on. Nunez is interesting. Mark, have you seen the stats for Jonathan David at Lille, though it's the French league? What do you think, says Andy and Bruno. So just on that, Jonathan David at Lille is an interesting player. I'm going to say this about Jonathan David right here, right now. I'm going to do a video on all the striker options soon anyway. I might even just do an extended video tonight at 8 o'clock and we can go through it and do it live rather than, a premeditated video. So maybe we'll do that at 8 o'clock tonight. Should we do that? I'll get a load of strikers that we can just look at and go through together. But what I would say about Jonathan David is I spend a lot of time looking at players on a couple of sort of apps and services I use, which is used by scouts. And I've watched Jonathan David a couple of times. I watched him play against Chelsea last week. He's definitely a decent player. He's got a really good goal to chance ratio. He doesn't get anywhere near the chances that a Ronaldo gets or an Osimhen gets or a Nunez gets, but he converts very, very well. My issue with Jonathan David is, and it's stupid, it's really stupid, is his running style. I think when I've watched him, I don't like his running style. He sort of runs with his bottom out a little bit. There's something, it might make no difference. I don't mean he's took his shorts off, by the way. He's not got his arse out. I mean, that would be an offence. But his running style just doesn't feel as smooth as an Isaac or a Nunez. And that just worries me a little bit. I think you can learn about a player in relation to how they move around. And I just don't like his running style that much. I don't think it is like Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling's style is weird but smooth. With Jonathan David, it's just a little bit stuttery. And I just wonder about French League to Premier League. But, I might be completely wrong on that. There's just something about his running style that worries me a little bit about Jonathan David, and I'm probably miles off. Anyway, he's got a very, as Andy and Bruno said, the thing about Jonathan David is, and it is the French league, of course, he's got a very good goals to shot ratio, which at United would make him perfect because we don't create many chances. So yeah, but look, there's a few striking options. This is a news show, so let's get back onto Nunez. So Uruguayan striker. I don't know what accent that was. Uruguayan striker at Benfica, 22, prolific. Probably the most prolific striker we've been linked to, who's a young striker. And there's probably about 6 or 7 that you could mention. I like Nunez. Again, you've got to take into account he's playing in the Portuguese league, and it's very difficult to talk about that. And Robert McCormack says, unlike our players, at least he runs. Yeah, I suppose the problem with Jonathan David for me is I just don't know whether he's that level of a striker. But you could say that about what we're talking about with Nunez as well. In your opinion, who do Manchester United need in terms of players and managers to be challenging for the trophies again, says Luke. I would watch last night's video, Luke, because we basically covered that in the last 15 minutes. But in short, you need a 3-year plan, the right manager, and total control to do what he wants to do. You need to do what Arsenal have done with Arteta, and if he says let's get rid of Aubameyang, you go, okay, sure, yeah, let's do it. At United, no manager can walk in and say sell Harry Maguire or sell Marcus Rashford or sell Bruno Fernandes, because the club would say no. They've done it before. They did it with Mourinho and Martial. They'll say no. We've not got total control, so you can't succeed. It's the simplest. We can all talk about, let's have a meeting with the club. We can have a Zoom call. We can talk to Must. We can have a fan forum. We can, we can go on websites. We can come on United Stand. We can, there's loads of things we can do, but none of them will change. Sometimes the solution is so simple. The simple solution is, and we can all talk about money spent and the Glazers and this, that and the other, but the thing that really stops Manchester United succeeding is the fact that that club doesn't let a manager manage. When Ralph Rangnick says, get me a midfielder in January, and they say no. When Ralph Rangnick says, let Lingard go to Newcastle in January, and they say no. You're saying no to the guy who's running the football team. And your board members. Well, you're not training the team. You're not picking the team. It's not your head on the block. But you're telling him no. No. When Mourinho says, I don't think Martial's the future of this football club, I want to sell him and get some money for him. No, we like him. What's that all about? And the prime example is Pep has the free reign to do what he wants. Klopp's got the free reign to do what he wants. And we've seen it this season. Arsenal, nowhere near top 4 at the start of the season. Weren't predicted to get top 4. Aubameyang's without doubt their best paid player and probably their best player at the start of the season. He's gone by Christmas, phased out, get out. There's an issue there between the manager and Aubameyang. And all right, Piers Morgan and co want to make it more about Aubameyang than the manager, but the club said no, we're with the manager. Off Aubameyang goes. Yeah, he's scoring goals for Barcelona, but we've got improvement that we believe in. And that's the way to run a football club. United don't run a football club like that, and that's the biggest problem we've got. Fred, my Harry, the posters are still up. Fred, my Harry, the posters are still up, says Robert McCall. I don't know what you're saying, Robert, there. Fred, my Harry, posters are still up. So, yes, in relation to Nunez, record Portuguese outlet are linking us to him, 22. Now, if you've not seen a lot of Nunez, I would put Nunez sort of round. I'm not saying he's as good as Cavani, but he's that sort of a striker. And don't think of Cavani, it's cold, I'm not playing. Don't think of Cavani like that. Think about Cavani when he was like 25. He's that type of a striker. He's not blisteringly fast, but he's fast enough. His movement in and around the box is very good. He's a very clinical finisher. He's good in the air. He can hold the ball up. He's an all-round striker, Nunez. And I do like him. But it just depends these days, and it brings a smile to my face because everyone's got an opinion. I've just put a video up on That's Football, Sancho versus Saka. Check it out. You've got Arsenal fans turning it into something it doesn't need to be. It's a genuine conversation. But I think you've got the Nunez all-round striker. And I think of people like Alan Shearer. And then you've got the Osimhen, Isaac, Jonathan David type striker, Jamie Vardy, those sort of strikers who are fast. Thierry Henry. And I'm not saying that they're as good as Thierry Henry, and I'm not saying Nunez is as good as Shearer. I'm just saying you've got probably two of the best Premier League strikers of all time. Two types. Shearer, physical, all-round, not blisteringly fast, great finisher, all-round game. Henry, skillful, finisher, fast, flair. Two very different types of strikers. And I think more people want the Thierry Henry blisteringly fast striker than the Alan Shearer type of striker. To be honest with you, I quite like the Alan Shearer type of striker. It's something a little bit different, and Nunez in that sense is very interesting. Whether we could get him, I mean, you'd imagine he's probably got a good relationship with Cavani, being Uruguayan. Whether Cavani would say it's a good club to come to or a bad club to come to, I don't know. But I do quite like Nunez. I do feel it's Portuguese paper talk and fan talk. I don't think it's really Manchester United talk. I've not really heard anything credible about Nunez to Manchester United. But I do like him. And, again, he fits that profile, 22. And you know what? The sort of striker he is at 22, coming and working with Ronaldo for a year, that's why United need a young striker. If we can get the right 22-year-old striker, or 21 or 23 or 24, whatever, if we can get the right striker and give them a year under Ronaldo, then that could be really important. I'm the Harry Kane cheerleader. Buy him, says Robert McCormack. Oh, okay. Yeah, Robert McCormack loves Harry Kane. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Harry Kane did come to Manchester United, Robert. I wouldn't. I think if we get Pochettino... And it's interesting what we were talking about last night, isn't it? I'm definitely going to do a video tonight at 8 o'clock about strikers. I think we'll have a really in-depth chat about it, and I'll get some shields up and stuff like that, and we'll go through a few different strikers. And we, maybe we'll do a bit of a poll in the chat and stuff like that. What if Mason gets cleared after investigation, says Dominic? I've got no appetite to talk about that, Dominic, because what if he gets found guilty, in which case he needs to do time for something that's very, very bad. So I'm not going to give a crumb of optimism around Mason Greenwood when at this moment in time it's an ongoing investigation and there's just absolutely no value in talking about it either way. But with Harry Kane, if Manchester United get Pochettino would love Harry Kane, and Harry Kane would love to leave Spurs. And he'd cost about 100 million quid. And I wouldn't be surprised, and I think this is a great example, I wouldn't be surprised if United did that deal if they got Pochettino. But I would be pissed off if United did that. You probably wouldn't be. You'd probably be very excited. You'd get your Harry Kane shirts and we're going to win the league and all that jazz. But remember what we were talking about last night. How do Man United find their way back? Basically, Rangnick's telling the club that if you want to find your way back, it's going to be a long way back, but you've got to buy more players that are around £40 million and stop buying £100 million players that use up most of your budget, especially players who are 29. Harry Kane will be 29 in the summer. So we shouldn't go anywhere near Harry Kane, and it would be contrary to what Ralph Rangnick would advise them to do, because if you got Harry Kane at 29 for £100 million, we're not winning the title in the next 3 years. So by the time we're a title winning side, or a potential title winning side, Harry Kane's 32. So what are you spending £100 million on a 32-year-old for? All right, he could be part of the rebuild for 3 years, but by the time the rebuild's done, he's basically needs replacing. You'd be far better off not spending £100 million on Harry Kane, spending £50 million or £40 million on a Nunez, who's in 3 years' time is going to be 26 or 25, which is when you're hoping to be a title-winning side, and his value's shot up and he's in his prime. And then you've got another £50 million that you haven't spent on Kane to get a midfielder. So that's the way forward for Manchester United. There's nothing wrong with Harry Kane. There's nothing wrong with Robert McCormack wanting Harry Kane. He's a very, very, for me, he's one of the world's best strikers. But Harry Kane's not going to make us win the league in the next 2 years. We're miles away. We've got to rebuild the team. And it's getting this mentality into the board, isn't it? And this will be the big key. Are they going to bring a Poch in and give him Harry Kane and think, yes, that's the way to solve things and sell shirts short term? Or are they going to bring a manager in and say, right, we're going to rebuild this club properly? Because that's the real way back. That's what Rangnick's telling them to do. That's what a lot of fans want to see happening. But can you trust this board not to go and buy another shirt seller? We'll have to wait and see. So it's interesting on the striking situation. I think that Osimhen's a no-go, really. I'd be very surprised. Nunez is very interesting. But let me just add into the equation. PSG are going to be looking for a striker this summer when Mbappe goes. Arsenal are looking for a striker. There's probably, if Lewandowski leaves Bayern Munich, they'll be looking for a striker. So there's a merry-go-round of strikers, which Fabrizio Romano spoke about on Monday, and it's where United can position themselves in that merry-go-round. We'll certainly be a contender to get a striker, but it's a little bit like the centre-back situation last summer. There was a lot of centre-backs moving last summer. I mean, Alaba sort of went in the January, really, but there was Alaba, there was Konate, there was Varane. Obviously, we got Varane. There was Ramos. There There was a couple more. It was all about centre backs last summer. This summer it's going to all be about strikers and where can Manchester United position themselves on that striker hunt. Mark, I'm in Benfica as well, and I love Nunez, but he isn't good enough. His first touch, it's terrible, and it's worse than Lukaku. Well, that's interesting from Kashina if she's watching a lot of Benfica, because ultimately you make a very, very good point. Whether it's Osimhen, whether it's Jonathan David, whether it's Nunez, whether it's Schick, whether it's 4 or 5 other players around that sort of age of early to mid-20s, they're all playing at clubs that aren't top 4 clubs in the Premier League. They're all playing at clubs that aren't going to be in the final 8 of the Champions League. And that means that these players have to be well scouted, because they will have issues. Osimhen's too expensive. Nunez might have a bit of a dodgy first touch. Jonathan David's running style might not suit. There might be an issue there, there might not be. We are not going to get the complete striker. That's why we're going for a 22-year-old that we think we can develop. And that's something that we've really struggled with at United over the last 4 years, is we don't develop players. We have to become a club that develops players. Because I think it's become foreign to our fan base that you buy a player and then in 2 years' time they're a better player than you bought. This is what happens at Liverpool. This is what happens at Man City. This is what happens at Chelsea, because they've got good coaches and they develop. At United, we buy Bruno Fernandes. Oh, he's a good player. And then 2 years later, I'm bored of Bruno. He's not. What's he do? He just gets goals and assists, and then misplaces passes, because we haven't developed his game. Bruno's the same player he was when we brought him in. Rashford's the same player he was 3 years ago. We don't develop their game, and that's what we must do if we buy a 22-year-old striker. Make Alanga a first teamer, train Rashford as a striker, says Dominic. Mate, are we Manchester United or are we Everton? Do you want to be Manchester United, or do you want to just keep letting the Glazers off the hook? Let's make Alanga a winger and train Rashford as a striker. We're Manchester United, mate. Our revenue streams are huge. Why are we taking Rashford and training him up to be a striker? I don't think he is a striker anyway. I mean, there's so many flaws to Rashford's game as a striker. I think we can get him back to being a wide forward, but as a striker, physicality, first touch, final ball, he's got pace and a decent finish, but that's not enough to be a striker in the modern game. You've got to be able to play with your back to goal, and that's not Rashford's forte. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if United did do that, but I wouldn't want to see United do that. Is Chelsea up for sale? Don't know, Fraser. Don't massively care. It doesn't benefit Manchester United either way. Abramovich has been a very good owner for Chelsea and made them very competitive. If he sells them, somebody will buy them to make them competitive. So it doesn't benefit Manchester United either way. They've already got an owner that makes them win titles more than we do, and if they sell it, they'll get an owner who wants desperate. I mean, Chelsea's a very attractive club to buy. Somebody will buy Chelsea and make them as successful as they have been. So it's not good for United. I've read people going, that's the end of Chelsea. Abramovich is gonna go. I don't think it's the end of Chelsea at all. There'll be some billionaire that fancies it. The reality is, we haven't got a billionaire who wants a successful football club. We've got billionaires who just want to make money. And I wish our club was up for sale. I really, really do, but it's not. I don't. Yeah, it's not. Just on Cristiano Ronaldo as well. I don't really think that United looking for a young striker is a massive issue for Cristiano Ronaldo. I think we've seen over the last week that he can't play 3 games in a week. And if we had a younger striker, you could be subbing Ronaldo off for 70 minutes. You could be bringing him, you could be resting him for a game. That's what we need. We've desperately missed Cavani over the last few weeks. Ronaldo would not have started all the games he had. He would have been subbed off in some games because he wasn't playing well. The issue with Ronaldo is that he's been out of form and we've had to just keep playing him. So for me, bringing in another striker is a positive that would help Ronaldo. It doesn't matter who we get in. United has been a career graveyard for years, says Spencer. Something profound needs to change at the club. Yeah, the ownership needs to change, Spencer. I want to pump it up. I want to be positive today. We've got a cracking video to do at 8 o'clock tonight, and I'm looking forward to getting up the McFred head-to-head at 2, and career mode at 3 on TUSFC Twitch, Goldbridge TV. But yeah, we always come back to the same issue. The issue is the Glazers. They are a massive issue at Manchester United, and I do get jealous of Chelsea potentially being bought by a billionaire that wants them to be successful. Our club is absolutely screwed with this ownership, and I don't. Last night's video was very good. If you didn't see it, we were discussing some of the comments coming out of the club, but one club's trying to win and one club's trying to make money, and we're trying to make money. We basically need a replacement for Mason, who has planned to be our striker for the next decade, says Joshua Bowerwater. Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I don't want to delve into that any further than that, but, you know, I always said a year ago, Ollie kept hinting about Haaland, and a lot of our fan base wanted Haaland, and I was like, you're going to spend £200 million on Haaland when you've paid the agent fees, the wages, etc. And we had a player in Mason Greenwood that I really believed could have been a really top-class striker, but obviously we don't know what's going to happen with that situation. And, you know, I don't know. It would be pure speculation. There's a lot of money locked up in Mason Greenwood for this football club, and I guarantee you Manchester United Football Club would wish that he was still playing for Manchester United, but the circumstances of it are that he can't. And there's nothing, we can't speculate any further than that, really. In relation, I did want to bring this in, by the way. £43 million Manchester United have paid in compensation to their last three managers: Van Gaal, Mourinho and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. £43 million we've paid to sack those managers. And it just goes back. I mean, it's a massive headline. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got £10 million. £10 million we gave Solskjaer to go. And, you know, let's not forget, we gave him a new contract in the summer and we sacked him, 4 or 5 months later? £10 million to Solskjaer to go. I mean, again, I look back at those comments yesterday from the board, which is basically the same board we've had for 9 years, talking about, you know, empowered leadership, vision, strategy to win, clear vision for the future. You know, we're going to get a manager in that's going to win us trophies. And I'm like, the biggest problem for me is that the same people are making the same decisions. It's the same board making the same decisions. You know, it's that old statement again, isn't it? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again. And we've mentioned it probably every few months as a community on here many times, that we can all get excited about a new signing, we can all get excited about a new manager, but we never sack the board. We've never replaced people on the board. In 9 years since Sir Alex Ferguson left, we've never sacked people from the board who appoint these managers, who sign these players. I mean, I often wonder what the Glazers actually think from a footballing point of view. And of course, the instant answer is they don't care because they're making so much money. When they look at Manchester United, they just see the profit and the dividends, and that's what makes them happy. And that's the sickening thing, because if they actually looked at it from a football point of view, they'd be furious. But they don't. They look at it from a business point of view, and from a business point of view, it's massively profitable every year on year, and it's getting more and more profitable. But if you look at the football side of things, no title race in 9 years, and we were title holders. Over £1 billion spent, and we're in a worse position than we were before we spent the billion. And then we've spent £43 million on sacking managers. Now, if I cared about the football side, which I do, I'd be like, you're all gone. Go, get out. How much is it to sack you? Like, you wasted £1 billion on signings. We've never been in a bloody title race. And you've also spent nearly £50 million on sacking managers that you've recruited. Get out. I want my coat. I'll throw your coat. I'll burn your bloody coat. You can piss off for your coat. But United don't do that. We out the... You know, it's like running a restaurant and sacking your waiter and your chef. But you're making the decisions as the owner. And you can just keep making bad decisions. It's ridiculous. But £43 million... on sacking managers, like somebody's got to be accountable for that. And let's not forget, Ed Woodward was the CEO. He's decided to resign. Nobody's forced him out. Nobody's pushed him. It's not a sacking dressed up as a resignation. He decided to go because he'd had enough of the stress and the pressure. United wanted him to stay, and yet he's the guy with the board that remains that have made these bad decisions. They came out with their chest back in September and October and November telling us that all the fans were hysterical, basically, wanting Ollie to be sacked because they know best. And what happened? They're all we know best, we're sticking by him, and then he loses to Watford, and it's like, you don't know best, do you? You're a bunch of useless, incompetent people who hide behind bad decisions. And actually, you're the headline. Forget Ranić, forget Maguire, forget Ronaldo, forget any other thing. You're just getting lost in tiny little things. The headline is, these people are still running our football club and they're absolutely terrible at it. They put statements out to their bloody journalist friends. Oh, Ollie's the way. We believe in the culture, the cultural reset. This is when we've been hammered at home by Liverpool 5-0. We believe we're on the right path. We knew there was going to be some bad results, but we're on the right path of the last 3 years. We know what we're doing. Everything's good. We're going to stick with Ollie. And they would have. They would have stuck with Ollie. If Watford hadn't tanked us, they would have stuck with him. And these are the incompetent people that we still have at this football club. £43 million, 10 of it to Ollie. Unbelievable. Can you give a shout out to Harry Duckworth, says Luke. Harry, shout out for you. And the share price probably jumped after those sackings and the board were proud of themselves, says Reese. It's such a manipulative business, Manchester United. And if you let yourself get dragged down into it, you just spend your whole life angry and frustrated. It is what it is. And, you know, I think some people are just absolutely obsessed with trying to change it. Some people just accept it, and that's the problem. Is that the Glazers are very clever, the board's very, very clever. They'll do things to make fans feel involved, and ultimately you're just involved in their regime. There's been some really good things that United have done over the last couple of years in and around Old Trafford to change things, move things, and ultimately that makes people feel like they've got a voice. But you haven't got a voice in relation to Man United winning titles. You haven't got a voice in relation to what Manchester United's infrastructure is. Who's the captain, what the facilities are like, what the long-term vision is. You might have a voice in, where certain people sit in the stadium and, how much a pint is and all that, and that's great, but we don't have any voice where it matters, and we can't stop them taking dividends out of the club, and we can't make them pay the debt off. And to me, that's a voice at Manchester United. I think it's great that we can, bring things into the ground and, there's positive things done around that. But the way the club's run is we've got no voice in it, and I don't see that changing, really. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. Got a cracking video coming up for you at 2 o'clock, McTominay versus Fred. We've done a few of these head-to-heads, and this one's probably the most interesting one, so make sure you tune in for that. And then tonight at 8 o'clock, I'm going to get it all set up. We're going to do a striker search. We're going to go through loads of different options and we'll chat it through together. So make sure you watch those two today. I will be on Twitch, Goldbridge TV at 3 o'clock with United Stand FC. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and I'll speak to you all in a bit.